What's up, Ragin Nation? How's it going? This is Alex Yu, and you're watching the Ragin Ronin review. In this video, I will be giving you guys a top 10 list. And this top 10 list will be for my top 10 disaster films. Now, I just want to clarify that in this list, I will not be including films like Independence Day and War of the Worlds. Even though I consider them as disaster films, I think they belong more appropriately in a different list. Like, for example, top 10 alien invasion films. You know what I'm saying? So the disaster films that I'm going to be including in this list will be for disasters that are caused by natural causes. You know what I'm saying? So let's begin without further ado with number 10, and that would be The Perfect Storm, directed by Wolfgang Petersen. This film stars George Clooney and I think Mark Wahlberg. It's been a long time, but it's led by George Clooney, and they go out on this fishing trip out in the Atlantic Ocean, and it's a multi-day expedition, but things go wrong, and it's mainly because of the perfect storm, and you see a lot of waves crashing down on the boat, and it's a bit of a slow burn. I mean, we take a little bit of time to get to know the characters, and we get to see small waves to big waves to giant tidal waves, and then, of course, it all goes down. But it was a good film. It's a good film. It's a sad film, but that is number 10. Number 9 is The Day After Tomorrow, directed by Roland Emmerich, the master of disaster films. He keeps on giving us disaster films, and this is a film that it's kind of like The Perfect Storm in the sense it's a slow burn, but the slow burn happens in the middle, and then afterwards the disaster comes down like a modern day ice age. After that, it's all about rescuing a dad looking for his father, or a dad looking for his son. It's all about that later on, and it's kind of slow. It's kind of a slow movie, but at the middle, once all the disaster happens, it's actually pretty exciting. But afterwards, it's really all about surviving the disaster afterwards, and they don't really even tell you how they're going to survive afterwards. I think they all die in the end. I mean, think about it. It's like a freaking modern day ice age. Everybody's going to freeze unless there's going to be some kind of solar meltdown. But anyways, that's number 9. Number 8 is Twister, directed by Jan de Bont. Now, Jan de Bont is, of course, most known for his work on Speed. He directed Speed, which is a really, really incredible action film. I think it's one of the greatest action films of all time. I'm not saying it's the top action film of all time, but it belongs in that list of greatest action films of all time. Anyways, he brings that speed, or rather that fast-paced action in Twister. Twister is a disaster film about hurricanes, tornadoes, cyclones, all that. And it stars Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, and it's a really, really fun and exciting film. It's not like those other two films that I mentioned where it's like a slow burn to get to the big finale, the big disaster. We get all of these little tornadoes, and then afterwards we get the big tornado, and it's about these storm chasers that want to study tornadoes. But of course, things get pretty crazy because, you know, it's a very dangerous job. And then Jan de Bont really keeps the pace of this film really, really fast and furious. I don't mean to say that, but it's appropriate for a movie like this. But anyways, Twister is number 8. Number 7 is Deep Impact. This is a film directed by Mimi Leder. I think it's the second film from DreamWorks Studios. And this is a really good film. It's more of an emotional film. It's not very exciting. It's more dramatic because the disaster, and by disaster I mean a giant freaking asteroid coming down to the Earth, all that happens at the end of the movie. Everything else before that is all about, it's kind of like, it's very emotional in the sense that it's all about getting the family together and just saying their goodbyes and preparing for it, and all the things that you could do, you know, before the disaster, tying loose ends, finding closure, and all that type of stuff, okay? So it's a little bit more of a drama than it is a disaster movie, but it still falls in the genre, and I think it's a good movie. I think it's a very good movie. I think Mimi Leder did a very good job in giving us a more dramatic approach to the disaster film genre, and it's a decent film, all right? Moving on, we are down to number 6, and that would be Contagion, directed by Steven Soderbergh. And this is a different type of disaster film. It's a disaster that is caused by humans in a very natural way, in the sense that they caused a worldwide epidemic, a pandemic, if you will. And yeah, this disease, this epidemic, it's just going worldwide, it's going crazy. And what this film is really about is just human nature, cause and effect. What do people do when something as terrible as disease and epidemic spreads throughout the entire world? What do they do? And it's really all about that. It's all about human behavior. And Matt Damon is the star of the film, or rather one of the main characters. It's got an all-star cast, but I think this is a really, really good film. It's a drama, and you know, it's not exciting in the sense that like things blow up or anything like in other disaster films. Like, it's not a popcorn film in any way. It's a drama, and it's a drama about I guess human behavior and I guess how people deal with things. All right, so it's a different approach to the disaster film genre, but I really, really like how it's different. Okay, number 4, or rather number 5. Number 5 is Gravity, directed by Alfonso Cuarón. And he did an excellent job with this. Sandra Bullock did an excellent job. George Clooney is also in this. And one thing about Gravity that I really, really like is not only is it about survival, but the disaster happens right at the beginning of the movie. The disaster happens at the beginning, and then it's really a one-man show. One-woman show, because Sandra Bullock is playing the main lead, and it's about survival. She's trying to survive, and she does this all on her own with a little bit of help of George Clooney, but still, this is a movie led by her, and it takes place in space where nobody else is around, and I think she does an excellent job driving this film, and it's a great film. I think there's some people that didn't like it because of the nature of the film, where it's just like one person doing the whole thing and there's not a whole lot going on. I beg to differ. I think that this is a very exciting film. I was drawn by the performance, and this is one of those films, and there are not many of these types of films, but this is one of those films that really brings you into outer space. You get that full immersive experience about being in outer space, all right? So really, really cool. I loved it. Number 4, I'm totally losing track. Number 4 is Titanic, directed by James Cameron. What an incredible movie. It's an outstanding film. I mean, half of the movie is love story, the other half is disaster, but we all know the Titanic disaster in real life, and what James Cameron did is bring in like a fictional story wrapped around a real life historical disaster event. And I think that it was a really great approach, and what of course was the star of the movie was all that destruction that took place on the boat. Once they hit the iceberg, from that point on, it was just, you know, this big lead up to a very, very emotional demise. And it's, you know, that love story that was built up in the beginning really created for this connection that we have with this character, and that at the end of it all, it was one of the most biggest tear-jerking movies of all time, and ended up making, at the time, the highest grossing film ever. So that was a great film. We're up to number 3 now. You know, I cannot have a top 10 disaster film list without having a Michael Bay film in there, alright? Armageddon. Armageddon is probably the definition of a summer popcorn blockbuster disaster film. This is a fun film. I ended up watching it 3 times in the theater, and I loved it every single time. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of action, a lot of comedy in there, and it was a movie that's just like a lot of other disaster films. Half of it's build-up, the other half is disaster. And he keeps it really fast-paced. It's action-packed, and it's a lot of action without action. It's just the way he directs the movie. He keeps everything moving, and at the end of it all, I find that it is a very, very heroic and triumphant climax. I loved it. I love Armageddon. I think Armageddon is one of those films that, regardless of how silly it is, you know, a lot of people love it. A lot of people really, really enjoy it for what it is, and that is just pure entertainment, okay? I mean, it's even got a Criterion Edition DVD, alright? So that tells you something. Number 2 is San Andreas, directed by Brad Payton, starring The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and Carla Gugino, Alexandra Daddario. And I really love this film. This film came out last year, and I didn't think that there would be any good earthquake films that would ever come out since 2012, but this was actually really, really fun. It was a lot of fun to watch, and the disasters just kept on getting bigger and bigger, and really it's all about outrunning, outboating, outdriving disasters. And it was just so much fun. It was a great film. I really, really enjoyed this film. And yeah, it's you know, it's one of those movies. It's just pure entertainment. It's a full-on ride, okay? Now, of course, you guys already know what number 1 is. Number 1 is 2012, directed by Roland Emmerich, the master of disaster. He's given us so many disaster films. In fact, pretty much all his films are disaster films. I mean, 2012, Independence Day Resurgence, A Day After Tomorrow, Godzilla. But 2012, I gotta say, is the ultimate, the definitive disaster film, because not only is it about an earthquake, it's a lot more than that. We're talking about the end of the world based on the Mayan calendar. December 12th, 2012. That is the day where the Mayan calendar ends, and they according to Mayan calendar and what they believe, they say that nothing else happens beyond after that. The world ends, and of course the world ends in traditional, typical Roland Emmerich style, and that is earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, everything. So we get a lot of that. We get pretty much a non-stop ride in this film. It's a really silly movie. Once again, you get out flying, out driving, out running, out boating. Maybe not outboating, but we get a lot of those things, outdoing disasters. You're just trying to run away from it all. It all comes crashing down. And I gotta say that the initial first sequence with John Cusack driving his limousine through all those disasters was like a roller coaster. And I think it would have looked so good in IMAX 3D because it was just ridiculous. I had so much fun watching this movie, and it's number 1. Anyways, I'm just going to recap it all for you guys. Number 10, The Perfect Storm. Number 9, The Day After Tomorrow. Number 8, Twister. Number 7, Deep Impact. Number 6, Contagion. Number 5, Gravity. Number 4, Titanic. Number 3, Armageddon. Number 2, San Andreas. Number 1, 2012. Now, these films are fun films. Most of them are fun films. You know, a lot of these films, disaster films, a lot of things blow up, a lot of action happens, a lot of people running, driving, flying away from disasters. They're meant to be fun films and entertainment, okay? I mean, they don't necessarily have to be groundbreaking, like, great films. And by great films, I mean, films that are, you know, like, amazing films. You know, everybody has their idea of what a good film is. I think that the disaster genre is a genre that should be fun. Okay, I mean, sure, there are films like Deep Impact, which are dramatic, and Contagion and Titanic, which have romance in them. But at the end of the day, these films are meant to entertain. And 2012, as silly and as dumb and as like ridiculous as it is, it was a lot of fun, and I felt totally entertained, and I felt that this movie is the definition of what a summer blockbuster should be. So that's why it is my number 1 pick for my top 10 disaster films list, okay? Anyways, that's all I gotta say in this video. Why don't you guys let me know in the comment section below, what are your top disaster films? Give me some of your top disaster films. If you can't name 10, if you can name 10, awesome. But otherwise, let me know what you think. As always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation. Also follow me on Twitter, Ragin Nation. My name's Alex Hughes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. I'm planning to do some pretty wild and hilarious things. One of those things is, of course, cast Sylvester Stallone. In the first one,